And then they go, oh, hey, there's my car. And they just walk off the boat and go swimming away. And there's nothing you can do to stop them.
Yeah.
I know. It's hard to imagine, though, that all 10 people would have been equally loony and equally motivated to just walk off the boat. So again, that kind of shoots that one to hell.
Yeah.
But that might explain, maybe why the lifeboat was gone. Because if somebody, one or two people walked off the boat and the rest of them sort of like launched the boat, not realizing, maybe they were just addled enough to not realize, hey, we can just turn the boat around. Go back together.
Yeah.
And so they launched the lifeboat.
Or they don't, think about this. If it's a couple of the seamen that go over, and then it's the wife and the child and one guy who's the lowest mate on the rung that doesn't know what's going on. He's the greenhorn. He's like, I don't know how to steer this thing. Okay, well, let's take the boat out there. We'll get him. We'll come back. He can't be going that fast.
I feel like we could literally do this for hours.
I think we could.
I know.
And we should probably stop doing it.
We have definitely gone on too long, I think, as it is. So anyway, folks, I guess this is a first. We haven't solved the mystery. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to have some cool links on our website. That's thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. And if you want to look us up on iTunes, you'll find us out there. Download all the episodes that you want to. Be sure to leave us a rating. And comments are always welcome, of course, too. Find us on Facebook. You can also find us on Stitcher. Send us an email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And actually, the people I'd really like to hear from, I'd like at least one of you to buy a red oak barrel, fill it full of alcohol, and just see how long it takes for all the alcohol to seep through and go entirely away.
This
and then
sounds like a project
email.
for Joe in his basement.
No, that's a bad idea in his basement.
Besides, we have many eager, helpful readers or listeners, and I'm sure some of them, at least one of them, is going to want to do this for us. And also, of course, if you have any thoughts yourselves, any possible new theories that we haven't talked about and you'd like to bring to our attention, we'd love to hear about it. So again, that email address, thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. So concludes another, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Hard-hitting is usually what you say.
I use hard-hitting before at the beginning.
Anticlimactic?
Oh, no, not at all. It was very climatic. So concludes another scintillating episode.
Scintillating.
Yes.
Scintillating episode.
He's been using the thesaurus again.
Yeah.
I obviously haven't because I can't say it.
Yeah. So anyway, episode of Thinking Sideways. So, folks, until next week, ta-ta.
Bye, everybody.
I think he meant scintillating.
It was scintillating. Yeah, you're right.
Hey guys, Steve here. You are listening to one of our original 26 episodes. If you've listened to any of our new episodes, you're going to notice that we're sounding a little different in these ones.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
There is.
They've been remastered.
They have been remastered.
Because they had a really annoying hum.
Yeah, I mean, a huge thanks to listener James for doing almost all of the legwork on this thing.
Yeah.
You'll also notice if you had listened to what we're calling the Lost 26 episodes before, and you're re-listening now, the music and sound effects are gone.
Yes, we've gone back to straight audio. So, be warned, we sound a little different today than we do in what you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data for formulator supply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Thanks for coming back. I'm Steve.
I'm Devin.
And I'm Joe.
And we're going to give you a new story today. A story about a murder most foul. Our story begins, or ends, if you want to look at it that way, on June 30th of 1999. The body of Ricky McCormick was found face down in a cornfield about 20 miles from his home in St. Louis, Missouri. Ricky had officially been missing for 3 days, though his family said they hadn't seen him in 5. But when his body was found, it was in a pretty extreme state of decomposition, to the point that the fingers on his hands were falling off.
Wow, that's more than 5 days worth, I think.
Well, yeah.
Wait, where was it?
It was St. Louis, Missouri.
Was it? And it was in the summer.
It was in the summer.
Okay, it could have been.
Maybe. It's pretty humid back there. But how old was Ricky, by the way?
Ricky was 41.
Okay.
Okay.
And he wasn't in the primest of health.
Yeah.
He wasn't a healthy guy.
Okay.
But obviously, they find him, and he's pretty well decomposing, which made it very difficult for an autopsy. The county coroner or pathologist, whichever it is, decided that they would go ahead and do their best on his 72-pound body, or the 72 pounds that remained, and see what they could find. In the report, the pathologist eventually said that the cause of death was undetermined. They couldn't figure out why he died.
So it wasn't anything obvious, like a giant bullet hole or something.
Correct. No obvious sign of death, or cause of death. Excuse me.
Maybe he just ate a little too much corn.
He might have. Sat in the sun, it popped in his stomach. Yeah, that's it.
That'd be why he decomposed so fast,
Yeah.
too.
So that is the beginning, and then the mysteries begin.
Okay.
The first of which is nobody knows how Ricky got there. He didn't own a car. He's 20 miles away from where he lived in a cornfield, basically in a rural area, it sounds like. So we don't know how he got there. Though the police investigated, no killer was ever identified because there was never any solid leads in the case. There just weren't any clues, and the trail went completely cold.
The cornfield, was it like fully like a really developed cornfield with like 6-foot high corn stalks and all that, or that kind of cornfield? Or
I think it was next to a cornfield or just on the edge of, because it was right off the road.
Okay, so it wasn't the farmer that found him. It was just somebody like just drove by and threw the body out, that kind of thing.
Well,
Probably.
Yeah, we're guessing that's what happened with the body. We don't know. If I remember the details correct, a motorist found him.
Okay.
But that's all that I can glean from exactly how he was found. The other details in this story take precedence, and so those little details seem to get left behind and are hard to find.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any idea why we're talking about this?
It's got corn in it. I mean, anything with corn in it is cool.
That is not it.
No? Oh, okay.
The reason that we're talking about this is that 12 years after he was murdered, the FBI began to release information about the case and turned to the public to ask for help.
Okay.
The FBI, the knowers of all, plausible deniability, don't know the answer to this case. Here's what the problem is.
Okay.
When they found his body and they searched his pockets and they went through all of his belongings, the only thing they found on him were 2 notes in his pockets that contained over 30 lines of ciphered text, encoded text. They've been working on it for 12 years. This is considered one of their top cases because it's so mysterious for them that they eventually turned around and they asked the public for help.
Wow.
The FBI actually went ahead and set up a page on their website, initially asking for information, but it got so much traffic. Now they actually have a dedicated site or dedicated page on their site where it has the copies of the notes, and you can go ahead and download them and read them and try to figure it out yourself. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
Let's step back a little and let's talk about Ricky, because he wasn't the best guy in the world, and I'd like to give a little bit of history on him, because that might help shed some light on these weird notes, which then we'll go into.
Okay.
He had spent some time in prison for...
Well, he lived in St. Louis, didn't he?
He did. He'd spent some time in prison for sex abuse. Evidently, he'd fathered 4 children with 3 or 4 different women, though he never really was evidently involved with their lives, the children's or the women's, after impregnation. One of those ladies was actually 14 when the child was conceived. He was an adult.
What a classy guy.
Yeah, he went from being homeless to living at his mom's. He could barely hold down a job. He wasn't the highest on the social ladder. And ladies and gentlemen, I preface this with, this is a quote, this is directly what was said, is that his mother referred to him as retarded. Not the sharpest stick, evidently. His family, however, did like to say that he was street smart, but they agreed that he was trouble.
So not a guy that's really going to be able to compose an unbreakable cipher, huh?
You would think.
Yeah.
I feel like that's exactly the kind of person.
He might have been a
composer.
savant. It's possible, yeah.
Well, people who aren't thinking totally clearly often make mistakes in their ciphers, making them indecipherable, right? I mean,
Yeah.
That's true. That is a
the
good
big
point.
problem with disturbed minds.
Well, and it can also be, too, that what the cipher, was it letters, numbers, combination of both? Both letters and numbers.
It was both.
Both. Could have, it's entirely possible that it's not even a ciphered message at all.
Well,
that
we'll get into that because there is that possibility. And you, Devin, bring up a good point. Is maybe he makes it harder because of his mental state.
Right.
He could barely read or write, or he was very poor at it.
Mm-hmm.
His handwriting, which I'll bring up the notes here in a minute, and you guys can take a look at them. But his handwriting is difficult to read, but he supposedly, and there's some conjecture on this, supposedly ever since he was a small child had been making up codes of his own all the time. So he might have been doing this since he was a kid, so he had some crazy key built into his head just over repetition, which would make it even harder to crack because, well, the only person who knows the answer is now dead.
Right.
It is believed that they figured out the order of the notes because one of them does have P1 in the upper right-hand corner, which for you and I would indicate page 1. It might not be that. It might be something other in another piece of code that we don't realize, but people have been using that as the basis of this is page 1, and this is how we're going to go ahead and try and figure out the cipher.
And there were 2 pages, right?
2 pages, that is correct. Like I said, the FBI had been trying to crack this for a long time and gave up. And I've got some quotes directly from them. This is actually from Dan Olson. He's the chief of the FBI's Cryptanalysis and Racketeering Records Unit.
What a cool job title.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But hard to get on a name tag.
Yeah.
Well, but, it's kind of weird they lumped them together. Cryptanalysis and racketeering what?
Well, the mob uses ciphers all the time. They use codes.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I know, but still, cryptanalysis is kind of a thing. I mean, the FBI does a lot of counter-espionage, so, you would think that they would be using cryptanalysis even more heavily for that kind of thing.
True.
But anyway, that's irrelevant.
That's an aside, but who...
Yeah, anyway, who cares? Anyway.
But here's what Dan Olson says. He says, and I quote, "We're really good at what we do, but we could use some help on this one. Breaking this code could reveal the victim's whereabouts before his death and could lead to the solution of a homicide. Not every cipher we get arrives at our door under these circumstances. Even if we found out that he was writing a grocery list or a love letter, we would still want to see how the code is solved. This is a cipher system we know nothing about. Maybe someone with a fresh set of eyes might come up with a brilliant new idea." And let me repeat that line. This is a cipher system we know nothing about. Essentially, it's a brand new cipher to the FBI based on the way it's organized and put together. It could be, as one of you had said, he could be a bit of a savant when it came to codes.
Yeah.
Slow on everything else, but super great at puzzles. I was hearing the other day that people with Asperger's and autism are typically the ones that are savants with math. They're really good with those. So there are relations in the brain of chemistry and function. So it could be right along the same lines.
Yeah. So I take it the FBI must have turned this stuff over to the NSA.
I would imagine that they went for a lot of intergovernmental support on this one.
You would think that they would take it to the NSA before they would put it on the internet,
It's been 12 years.
Yeah.
I imagine that they went ahead and they pursued every avenue that was available to them. I don't imagine that they said, "Oh, no, we're not talking to those guys. We don't like those things."
You never know about the government. Sometimes they don't like each other.
I feel like they like each other more than they like the public, though.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if they sicked a bunch of crazy supercomputers on that thing and they weren't able to break it, then I don't know, man.
It's hard to say, but then again, a supercomputer only knows how to follow a formulas, whereas you and I can look at something and make that leap of not a leap of faith, but that leap of intuition, and suddenly it all falls into place, which computers aren't able to do at this point.
I have a strong feeling we're going to break it tonight, actually.
From what I've gleaned from reading stuff from the FBI and all these other news reports, it appears to be what's known as a simple substitution cipher, which, for those of you who don't know, is A is replaced with the letter B and B is replaced with the letter C or some variant of that.
Yeah.
It seems relatively basic from the outside, but there is some information based on posts that I've read of people who are trying to crack it, that it could be a polygraphic substitution cipher. And from what I can understand, a polygraphic substitution cipher is where it is actually letter pairs are taken and they replace other letter pairs. So TH now becomes BD, but TR would become CQ, if you know where I'm going with this. So they're
codes
actually,
are so complicated.
It's in total sequence 2 by 2. And that adds so much more variability because it's not 26 letters. It's all these letter pairings. Plus, you can throw numbers into the mix, which Ricky did.
Yeah.
So there's this huge number of possibilities. Or, again, as we said, it could be just something unique to him that only he understood.
And it could also be that it's just gibberish.
It absolutely could. And that's where the speculation comes in, Joe. And that's good timing on your part, is that the speculation is it's gibberish. It's this guy who was mentally unstable just writing garbage. And it doesn't make sense to anybody because it didn't make sense to him in the state that he was when he wrote it. There is also speculation that it could be a set of notes that he wrote at the time that he was with whoever killed him. So there's the possibility that cracking this code would shed light on how he died or why he died or who killed him, basically helping solve the murder.
Yeah.
Sure.
It seems unlikely because, frankly, I mean, if you're going to write a note knowing that you're probably about to die and you want to write a note incriminating Mr. X over here to your left, are you going to really put it in an unbreakable code or are you just going to write it in plain English?
Well, if he'd been doing codes his whole life and this was his code, it likely seemed incredibly simple to him. That he would think, well, anybody could break this if they took the time because I'm an idiot and I know how to do it.
No, absolutely. No, but again, it's like, why do you put it in code at all?
Well, because the other guy's watching.
Or he just did that all the time.
That's
that may have been his
Yeah.
automatic way to write. He may have just written down his grocery list.
Yeah.
He wrote his grocery list out. And somebody said, what the heck is it? What's my grocery list? What do you mean? Can't you read that?
Yeah.
It just may have been second nature to him.
Yeah.
He said his English was bad, right? Then maybe that was...
That was the way he compensated.
Yeah.
It might have been some crazy phonetic in his brain, like a phonetic system. I can, if I piece these things together, we don't know if maybe he was dyslexic, so maybe that's how he wrote things, but then he broke it into a code. There's all these variables that simply not a clue exists to.
Yeah.
Not a single answer so far.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and pull up the note for you, or both the notes for you guys, so you can take a look at them.
All right.
Sure.
So obviously, as you can tell when you're looking at them, it's very scribbled. It is difficult to tell what's going on in there.
It is, yeah.
Did you, as you look at it, and I can pull up if we want, but I don't know if it'll help. I do have a version that has it typed out in the actual text as typed rather than handwritten, but it seems like, and I said this before, it seems almost phonetic. As you read it,
It does a little bit. Like, I can kind of, like, my brain can make sense of little snippets of it.
yeah.
But
2-3 letter at a time,
Yeah.
but the context, you can't put the whole thing together.
yeah, like there's an if there.
What appears to be a lose, an L. So it starts with an R.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's very. It seems so simple, but at the same, when you look at it, and I think the handwriting is what makes it deceptive that way. Is it seems like it's written in a child's handwriting. It should be easy to figure out until it hits you in the head with a rock and stumps you, which is exactly what it did to everybody.
Yeah, but it's like down here it says like half something, please. PLSE.
It's like a DLSE to me.
Oh, it looks like a P to me. See?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
this
it's
is what
hard.
makes this so difficult. And I mean, if we are staring at it and already beginning to argue after 30 seconds, imagine what these poor fools at the FBI were doing.
DWM4. XD. Yeah. Maybe the typed out version would be more helpful, but I don't think there's any chance of cracking this.
Yeah.
I
I think it might be gibberish.
I think that it is going to be uncrackable because obviously the key went with Ricky to his grave. As of today, the murder